Welcome to the Depressy podcast.
I'm Missy.
And I'm Allie.
And we're sisters
in the mental health field.
Talking about all things stressy
and depressy.
Disclaimer.
Gosh, disclaimer. My cat is currently in my closet, which is blocked by the mirror because I need to move stuff around in order to have any semblance of bare wall. So she's kind of ruckusing right now. So if you hear plastic and things being thrown around, that's that. But disclaimer, this is not mental health advice.
We're
don't
just
take it as girlies who are studying mental health, but don't take it seriously, guys, okay?
This is just a podcast.
Pinky promise. Just a podcast.
Yeah.
We have to do our stressy depressed. Do you want to go first? I don't have like a great one teed up.
I don't
actually
have a great
an okay one.
Okay, you go.
Okay, so I really bonded with a patient on inpatient this past like week and a half. I'm currently doing internal medicine rotation, which is just basically like generalized hospitalized patients. And there's this one person who's like older, and it just like we really bonded. They also are like a huge cat lover. And we would talk about our cats, and they would talk about how they wanted to go home to see their cat. And every time I would come up there, they would be like, "Hi, sweetheart, how are you today?" Just like very warm, and just like kind of playful. Sometimes they would like pretend to be sleeping, and then when I come in, be like, "Oh no, not you again, leave." Like it was just a very sweet, playful, like kind of just like light in my day to go see this person. And they got discharged, which is great, actually. They got all the things that they needed inpatient. You know, they still have a lot of chronic issues, but they would like, even we just got to talking about like, I'm on the interview trail. I was talking to them about like what I wanted to do, and they were like genuinely interested in my career. Yeah. So sometimes I don't know like what's gonna hit me. Like sometimes I see patient deaths, or they need to be moved to the ICU, or an overall just like very emotional thing, and it doesn't hit me. And for some reason, leaving this patient's room knowing that that was the last time I was gonna see them, I literally started tearing up. And yeah, it's just so wild. I can never know when these things are gonna affect you. I feel like I don't know how to predict, and sometimes it can feel like you're a robot if you don't react in certain situations. You're like, my gosh, this person just died in front of me, or this person just had a very emotional conversation with their loved one about like their wants, and like it's not going in a good direction. Like, why am I not? I'm like, okay, time for lunch. Like, not as affected by that. And then sometimes small things affect you so much. Like I remember even in the ICU, there was a patient who was like very disfigured by their disease. And their wife had put like a picture of them and how they looked like probably like 2 weeks before this all happened. And that was emotional to see. But for some reason, just looking at that, like, I never know what is going to hit me. I feel like I've tried to just kind of not judge myself for whatever my reaction is. Because you can fall into the like, oh my gosh, why am I reacting so strongly to such a small thing? Or why am I not reacting to such a big thing? So I really try to like not judge myself and just let myself feel whatever I'm feeling. Like, you don't need to feel, it's okay if you don't feel certain things. I think that's like strange sometimes. But anyway, that's my stressy depressy this week, is that I genuinely am thinking about them, hope they're doing well, and hope that they're enjoying their time with their cat now.
I'm glad to hear how that story ended, because I was worried as you were talking that you were going to say something really tragic happened. Like,
no.
And I was like, oh no, what happened
crazy
to this person?
Like, why is that this story the one that's making me sad?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, just the idea that he has all these chronic illnesses, and, you know, that's what makes me sad.
I think that's a really wise approach. And I also think another layer to this too is that like what it looks like to feel a certain way doesn't always map on to what we like traditionally think. Like we think, oh, I'm sad, or I'm moved by this. It means I have to be crying, or, you know, want to engage in happy things in my life. And sometimes you might understand the gravity of the situation and feel upset or sad and just be like, okay, my body was able to like let that pass through or something. And then other times it really just might hit you more in a like outward expression sense, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Also, like, I do feel your perspective changes as you see a lot.
Yeah.
I think sometimes death, like, isn't the saddest thing in the world. It's like,
Right.
sometimes other things feel sadder, even though I think going into medicine, or like the first time I saw those things, it would be very hard to see. But
Yeah.
now there's, like, I find some of those situations honestly, like, uplifting. Like, a really difficult
Yeah.
conversation, I'm like, I leave there being like, that was difficult, but I'm so glad the patient got to express their wishes.
Right. Right. Totally.
Versus like, wow, that, like, really feeling drained by how sad the situation is. Even though it is, I don't take on that emotion as much. But again, it's so situation dependent. I feel like I'll just continue to evolve in, like, what things I feel sad or what things hit me.
Totally. I feel like I know, like, a while ago, one of my stressy depressies was when I ended one of my clinical experiences.
Right.
And then, like, I was at a school and one of my students wasn't there on the last day. And that really hit me. It's so interesting. So our grandma was a teacher during her career and she just received an award. And I was actually just talking to her about it because at the award ceremony for her, like, teaching career, she actually had a former student introduce her. And this former student got to, like, it was really lovely, just sort of like gush about
I
how
haven't
much
even
her
heard
grandma,
about this.
It was really sweet. I know you were away for it, but I was there, and I mean, this man, like, just, he's older than he's like probably 10 years. I think he's like 10 years older than me. So it's been a while since he was in fourth grade. He was just gushing about our grandma and how much she meant to him and all of that. And my grandma, you know, I saw her last night at your engagement dinner, and we got to kind of debrief on it, and she sort of was just saying how, you know, that was a student who really impacted her. Of course, she's always like, I never showed favorites, and obviously she had many students who really impacted her, but this was one where she was like, I was just so glad that he was able to come back and introduce me. And he shared, like, a photo that his dad had taken when he was in fourth grade with our grandma. And I was talking to my grandma about how, like, I'm kind of jealous of that in, like, a clinical career because we have patient confidentiality. So we can never reconnect with our patients in that way. And there are ones who move us in such profound ways. And we just have to, like, you know, live with the fact that they're out there and we hope they're doing well. And we have no, like, sense of, like, how their lives will end up going unless they do come back to us. Which isn't always the hope, right? I mean, obviously that can happen and for good reason, but, like, especially as you're moving through your training, it's just so unlikely you're going to see the same person again.
I feel like for psychiatry, you can have more not typically, but as compared to, like, a therapist who's just doing, you know,
right. If you're, like, working on an inpatient unit for a bit, you might. But yeah, and so in a short term,
I'm saying like outpatient. Like, I would have more longitudinal care than you would as, like, an outpatient therapist.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, especially some of the more, like, chronic diseases. I mean, a lot of mental health diseases can be chronic, but things like, you know, schizophrenia and bipolar, ADHD, these things, like, don't go away. So they would need long-term care. So that is something.
No, that makes sense.
And that's another reason why I didn't just want to do child and I wanted to do adult, because then I can continue to follow people and get more, like, continuity of care with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. How would you feel if, like, one of your kiddos reached out to you in, like, 10 years to like, would that be something that you would welcome and, like, want to see, or, like, how would you handle that?
I think you have to, well, I wouldn't go so far as to necessarily say I would, like, I wouldn't want it to, obviously there's a bit of a power differential, and you never want, as the therapist, to, like, you really want to explicitly be a short-term pillar in someone's life. You don't want to start to replace, like, the role of a parent or the role of a, like, any other, like, stable long-term figure. So you do want to really hold that boundary. I think if I got a note in 10 years that was just like, you know, our work really, like, moved me and shaped, I don't know, not that this would necessarily be, like, the case.
Because I'd
or
always
if they
be curious,
presented,
like,
wanting to, like, see me again for therapy.
No, like, because I had a therapist when I was a teenager. I'm always curious,
Okay.
like, should I, like, write to her and be like, hey, I'm about to graduate medical school. I'm going into psychiatry. Remember that boyfriend I have in high school? We're actually getting married.
Yeah.
Like,
I think,
you know,
I,
like,
no, I
would
think
she
would love
want
to
an
hear.
update? Like, just, like, update.
I think she's probably
Like,
come to, well, if I were her,
I don't think she's sitting around waiting.
she's not sitting
or
around,
thinking
but I
about
think
me.
it would really be meaningful. And yeah, I've saved some notes that I've gotten. I haven't gotten anything like well after the fact, but sometimes when I've, not always for sure, but a few times when I've wrapped up therapy with people, we're more so adults, I've gotten like notes that were like, think like this really impacted me in these ways, and like just know that whatever, like this, all these things, you know, are going well now, etc. And I've saved them because they really do, like, it's really lovely to hear that. I do think that I'm sure she would love to see a note. I mean, she may not be able to, she probably wouldn't, like, she would just probably, I don't know. I don't think there would be such a back and forth, is my guess. But I don't know,
I don't
I
think
know
she'd
that's
be
not
like,
what you
and
would
by the
want.
way, this is what I'm going into my life. Like, that's not what I'm expecting.
Right. But I'm
just,
sure she would love an update. I don't think that's inappropriate. I think that's totally fine.
It is interesting. When I graduated college, I had a therapist in college for like 1 year, my like sophomore year or something.
Yeah.
And she reached out to me. She texted me, congrats on graduating today. Isn't that interesting? Because she just knew, like, when the Penn graduation was. I guess, like, she's in the Philly area.
Interesting.
I don't know. It didn't feel weird. It was just like, oh, thanks. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
It just kind of like
I mean,
a moment. I don't think it was, like, good or bad or whatever.
No,
I
don't think that's like any kind of bad violation or anything like that. I guess, and you know, I'm so new in my training, and also it actually really does vary based on the setting. I've worked in places where
That's true.
There's obviously what the rules are and like the laws, and then there's a wide interpretation of sort of like the ethics. And honestly, I've never worked anywhere that's like near to breaking HIPAA laws, but which is just the confidentiality of other people knowing the patients who are getting care there. But I have, you know, there's different levels of the ethics around, do you reach out after therapy, what happens? And I've worked in different places where there's pretty wildly different approaches. Like, for example, when I've left a placement, there's been places that the person's new therapist reaches out to me and then they're like, can we chat? And I get like a release signed by the patient, and my former supervisor says, of course, yes, you should like provide updates to the new therapist. That's totally fine as long as the patient consents. But I've also had placements where they've actually said, you're not allowed to do that because you've like left our clinic. And so we would have,
like, you're not
we
allowed
have all
to
of your
provide.
notes. Like, yeah, we have all of your notes. And so like, we'll have like someone from our service contact this new therapist to relay all the information. Again, with the patient's consent, is like through all of this.
Wait. Can you say that again? What happened?
Like, so if I'm seeing a patient in a certain setting and then I leave that training experience, so I'm no longer working at that clinic, and then let's say the patient gets a new therapist at a new clinic.
Oh, and they want to talk to you.
And they want to talk to me because they're like, oh, I believe that you saw XYZ person. And I maybe did. So then I will reach out to my former supervisor to say, hey, like, just want to confirm this is okay as long as I get the patient's consent. I've had supervisors tell me, of course, yes, this is useful. Go ahead as long as the patient has signed something. And others tell me, no, like, now that you've left, we're going to have an extra layer of protection around HIPAA laws that, like,
Interesting.
No,
because in terms of HIPAA laws, there's actually, like, it doesn't interfere with provider to provider communication. People require release forms as a policy, but it's actually not needed.
Right. And so those are examples
between
of where
two providers. I mean, I know at least in the doctor realm, and I assume since it's HIPAA, it's the same in the therapy realm. If I were working with a therapist and then moved to another therapist B, the second one, can reach out to therapist A without consulting me to get more information.
Yeah, I think it is similar in terms of the law, but that's where the law and ethics can be different. And
yes,
the law
I agree.
is kind of like the bare
really
minimum.
depends.
And then different clinics, just I've found that's just one example of where like different places might have different levels of their own ethical boundaries around these things. So it's interesting because in my training, I've always been taught like, you should not be reaching out to patients after you're seeing them, or really even really at all unless it's related to the clinical care that you're giving them. Mm-hmm. But I can totally see gray areas there. And that also might be like, okay, you're a student, you're learning, we're going to do the absolute most clean cut rules for you. And then as you grow further on, you might become more flexible in that. I don't know.
Yeah. I do think also a lot of therapists and doctors are thankfully and hopefully ethical people in the sense that they want to do right by their patient. So for the most part, I think there's definitely situations and circumstances, especially surrounding like safety and some of like more complex diagnoses, where it would be appropriate to reach out to prior providers that have taken care of this person without consent of the patient, like just because it is necessary for understanding.
Yeah, if there's a time. Yeah.
But I would say most times if you were to ask like your outpatient therapist, like, I had a really bad experience with this with other person, like I wouldn't want you to do that. I would say like 99% of the time, no one's gonna like go behind your back and do something. Like most people,
every clinic
there's, like,
I've ever worked at,
line, the bottom line is just like, or like the floor is being compliant to the laws. Most standards are like holding yourself above that. So
definitely. Yeah. Every clinic I've ever worked at, which I know I've worked at a decent amount, they always get a release. Sometimes even within the clinic. Like some clinics, it's like, okay, if it's another therapist who's here and they previously saw this student, now this student is at a new placement, but they still work at this clinic or something. I don't know. Like I've had situations like that, and it's like we often have a policy sometimes of just like telling the patient, hey, I'm going to consult with so-and-so who also works here. Is that good with you? Like just verbally. But I've also worked at clinics where like within the clinic, you have to get them to sign something. But I've never worked anywhere where if you're consulting outside the clinic, like, oh, this other place where this person received care, everywhere I've worked in that situation, we get something signed. Even though that's not required by law, it's just like, that's just most. Yeah.
Part of that is protecting yourself legally, like the clinic.
Yeah. Just to be like.
And the other part is that I think it's good to have, as long as it's possible, collaboration with your patient in terms of anything that you're going to do, that you guys are on the same team.
Right.
So.
No, that makes sense.
I know we've talked a lot about this, but what's your stressy depressy for the week?
Shoot, I forgot I hadn't even.
I know we're not even into our episode.
Like I said it. What is my stressy depressy? No, I don't think I did. I kind of had like a lukewarm one and then I forgot it. 1 second.
Lukewarm one could be Jacob cooking right now.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, actually that's a very nice thing that he's doing our whole week of meal prepping right now it's just funny because right before this, he's like such a I don't know. It's funny. Like I'm more of a rule follower in general, but he's more of a if there's a set of directions, like he needs to follow them exactly. And so with recipes, that kind of starts to break down where it's like, oh, we often make this stir fry recipe and we have it saved, but we have developed different ways of doing certain things. We don't always use all these ingredients that are listed. And he can't compute that. He's coming in and he's like, we don't use ginger so this can't be the recipe. And I'm like, no, that is the recipe. We just have changed it a little bit or whatever. So anyway, that's not my stressy depressy. In fact, I do want to, he's very nice to meal prep everything for us.
I'm like, what has happened this week?
I know it's a pretty good week. I feel like honestly, just internship applications are really a lot. I mean, I know that's kind of a lame one, but it's just.
Have you talked about on this podcast at all, how your internship applications work? So I feel like that's something that people could be.
I might have
about.
mentioned it a bit before, but it's pretty similar to residency in the big ways that it's a match system. So I apply to a bunch of places. Anywhere that I get an interview at, I can rank them, and then they rank all of their interview applicants, and then you get a match. So there's just one site that we hear about in February. It's you got to go here, or that's it. You forfeited your spot. So that's the process in the big way. But in the micro way, there's pros and cons to the different ones. I would say internship applications they're a lot more emphasis on the applying. So relative to residency. So whereas with residency, you have one, it's a common app. You just write one personal statement. You upload probably your CV or resume, and you just send them anywhere you'd like to apply. For internship, we have the Common App portion is 4 essays. So you write a personal statement, a clinical statement, a research statement, and a diversity statement. And then you write like a 2-page cover letter, single spaced, for every
Wait,
site.
it's 2 pages?
Yeah.
I did not realize it was 2 pages.
It's 2 pages.
I feel like cover letter, like in my brain, like literally means 1 page.
Usually it
like
is 1 page for most
covers.
jobs, but it's almost like, think of it as like it's almost like when you're writing like why this school for college.
That
like
is so... Every
you want
information that I get about your application process makes me like, that's crazy. Like, that's...
I know. And
it's so
all the
bad.
sites, like you would think like some people have maybe an easier time if they're kind of a specialist in one thing. Like I know someone who does mostly like behavioral medicine, so she works in like medical clinics, and her research and clinical work has only been about how like the medical diagnoses and mental health like interact. So pretty much all of her sites specialize in that, and she's just like, this is what all of my cover letters will write about. But for someone like me, where I've trained in tons of different settings, like a school, hospital, clinic, like I've done research on tons of different things. I'm applying to a lot of different programs that kind of emphasize very different aspects of that training. I still want to talk about the things I've done and highlight my skills, but I might really highlight quite different things if I'm applying to like a middle school versus an adult inpatient experience.
So crazy.
So, and also even the ones that are like adult inpatient, they're offering very different types of training. So then you want to really be specific to what they're doing. And the kicker, I'm just going to stop ranting in a moment, but the kicker is that it's so hard to find what these programs actually offer. They all have a brochure. They're all listed in such different parts of the website. Sometimes the brochure is updated on the website. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you click it and it's like 2023, 2024. And you're like, is that just when they last updated it?
Right.
Or is there a more updated version that I should be digging for? They're all formatted differently, and you're like digging through. Like it's truly a close reading assignment to understand like what these programs actually offer before you even sit down to write. And then, of course, you want to proofread your cover letter, make sure that everything looks good and that you're not accidentally, because of course you do borrow language from other ones. And so then you want to make sure that...
I'm so terrified because I've been sending out letters of interest kind of similarly, like, you know, certain aspects, but sometimes I'm borrowing the same language and I'll like copy and paste and like immediately delete the place's name because I'm so worried about...
Yes, you're like, I'm like Command F. But sometimes there's like things that aren't so obvious. For example, if I'm applying to an adult focused site and I use the word youth in a very like casual, like I am excited to serve youth in X setting, right? Like I might miss that word, and then they're reading it and they're like, oh, clearly this is not, like, I'm Command Fing all the names of the sites, but those kinds of things. Anyway, so it's tricky. I
have a question for you. Because my friend Erin was asking questions, you know Erin very well, about the match process.
Yeah.
And she was like, this is crazy. Like, why can't they do it just like a normal job? And I'm trying to explain, like, well, theoretically, this gets everyone into the top place that they would want possible, given what the programs want. Like, theoretically, it would be how it all would shake out if, like, I wanted program A, someone else wanted program A, but program A ranked me higher, so then they ended up getting program B. Like, that would have happened either way. If they offered A to me first, I would have taken it, and that next person would have had to get program B. Like, whatever it is. Like, theoretically, it's like where everything shakes out. If everyone makes a rank list, jobs are offered based on that. But it is so unnerving to, like, just have this day be like, okay, and this is where you're going. Like, you have to
you're
go.
Gonna move there.
Like, where you're finding out where the rest of your life is. But theoretically, if I applied places and that was the only place I got in, or that was my top choice offer, that's where I would go anyway. But there's something about someone else telling you have to go there. It feels like you're not having the decision, even though it kind of is giving you the decision.
Yes.
If you rank
it's a good way of putting it,
But it is hard. I don't know. Would you prefer if it were match or not match?
I would say, I feel like my wish is that there would be an option to stay in-house at your program if you want. And this is what's done in, at least at my school, where this is like, again, little in the weeds, but I'm in a PhD program. There's also a PsyD program, which is a more clinically focused degree. And the clinical PsyD program is the same as us, where you like have to just match wherever. There's a school PsyD program where people are trained to be school psychologists. And at that program, you can actually do internship in-house. Like you can decide that you want to just do one more year of training full-time clinical at your program, and it's compliant with the training that you need to do to complete your degree. And if you want to, and obviously the benefits are of like, okay, maybe you could have reached for a better match somewhere else, but if you like don't want to go through the process and you're maybe in good standing, or maybe you'd have to meet some sort of threshold, like I just wish there were that option, because it's true. I don't know. It's just so hard to expect people to like definitely be okay to uproot their life.
Yeah.
And I say that I don't even know if I would take it. Like, I don't know. But I just wish that
so
maybe
funny.
was afforded to me.
Right.
But in terms of the match, I guess that would be maybe my policy proposal for a change.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I feel like they couldn't accommodate that for medical school because there's just more people than spots available at a certain school who are applying. So they can't guarantee they'd take their own students. But it is interesting because theoretically, if I really don't want to go to California, I'm just not applying there. So it's not like they're truly deciding where I'm going to go. But I think the thing that is hard is like the secrecy around everything. It feels like some things are not very transparent. Like I would say like things that feel not transparent are like the fact that you find out where you match on Monday, but then don't find out where you match until Friday. That is just like for fun. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, that is...
Or the fact that rank lists are due like February and the matches don't come out till March. Like, to me, if you're really trying to make a system that's like fair and equitable, like, why are we not telling people the information as soon as possible? Like the way that a job offer would go.
Is what you're describing is more like our process, which is nice. Like, I actually forget exactly when the rank lists are due, but I want to say, I can't remember, but it's a much tighter timeline for everything for us. Like, my applications are due November 1st. A few weeks later is when interview invites start to come, and you'll basically hear about every interview that could come in by mid-December. And you might have already started interviewing by that point. Interviews end in like late January and match days in late February. So you like about a month later. So I mean, I guess there's still a little bit of time, but I guess like they're building in maybe like something goes wrong with the algorithm. I don't really know, but like it's a lot. And when you get your match, it's just an email that tells you matched and where. We don't have like a match day.
So
like
theoretically we do get that email as well, but the schools get access to our matches before us. Yeah. So they put it in the envelope. So if you want to go to match day, I would say the one benefit of having a delayed match day from finding out you match to the match, finding out where you match, is that the soaping process takes place, which is like supplemental. I don't know what it's called, like what it stands for, but it's essentially if a med student doesn't match, they would quote soap, again, I don't know what that stands for, into a program. So what that looks like is either in their field, or maybe they decide that it's more important for them to like have a job and they'd consider a different field as well. Like maybe you apply psych, but you'd be okay matching peds. You then submit applications and like rework personal statements and get new letters of recommendation for places that didn't fill their amount of people that they would want. So probably a place like you didn't interview at. And then there's multiple soaping rounds, and hopefully people like get in to a program that they would want during that time, so that by Friday can participate in this like match day.
Interesting. It all takes place in that time. That's okay. So that actually
in 1 week.
That's the best case I've ever. I didn't realize. I thought that soaping occurred after you heard about your matches. So that's the best
after
case.
You hear about whether or not you match.
Yes, so but I mean, like, Monday, I thought it occurred after match day, like after you hear where you're going. So that's the best argument that I have heard for that, so that you can participate in this like canon event of doctors.
Yeah, I agree.
And I suppose if you still haven't matched, then you don't go, like, you don't have to risk going to this event and feeling.
This is an interesting segue into our topic.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We should finally let the people know what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Yes.
Toxic positivity versus just the power of positive thinking. I feel like both things are true. This is like based on a recommendation, but we're kind of taking our own flavor of like one of our listeners. Hey girl, if you're listening.
We got a listener recommendation.
I know. And I feel like I might be taking it a different direction than they originally. But we'll see. You'll have to give me your read on it.
Let us know.
Girl. But
yeah.
I feel that I am someone that relies very heavily on radical acceptance of situations where to me it's almost like working backwards. So instead of, and we've kind of done a whole episode on this, but instead of working on building, you know, more accurate or more positive thoughts, like whatever it would be, having a better outlook on the situation in order to get you to a place where you're accepting the situation, just accepting the situation. And once you're accepting it, that allows your thoughts and your actions and everything to change because there's kind of a less pressure on the situation is how I feel. Like, so if I'm like, I would radically accept not matching. I don't know if I can fully say that with my whole chest, but I'm like, I feel that in my brain. I'm already thinking like, okay, what would I do in this time? Would I like,
what would it actually be like? Yeah.
Like sitting with that feeling, like, what would I do? Like in my brain when I was just like, and if I tried to soap and I didn't soap and then I didn't match Friday, I would literally, I was like, oh, so I'll go hang out with my friend who's in the year below me.
Yeah.
And then we would have like a part, like I'm already thinking about how it would be okay, like turning that situation around instead of thinking like many other people might be able to kind of get themselves to is like, I'm going to match. Like there's no way that's not going to happen.
It's so highly unlikely that
it's so highly unlikely. Like I'm not going to get to that calmness through that thinking because I can always, if there's any chance, then it's very stressful. You know what I mean? Like even stomaching like a 1% chance that like you have to go through this whole process again. It's like very hard to stomach. But if you stomach the idea that just it wouldn't be so bad, it's not the end of the world if that were to occur, then you can kind of work backwards and be like, and I'll probably match, so it'll be okay. I don't like.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting because even when you were just saying, you were like, and if you can just get to the point where you accept that it's not the end of the world and it's not so bad, those two sentences, it's not the end of the world and it's not so bad, are like the positive thinking that you're like saying you're so against.
I think that it takes a different angle. The positive thinking of being, I will definitely match. That's my positive thinking.
Right.
Versus,
yeah.
I will be okay whether or not I match or not is different positive thinking for me.
No, I totally get that. No, I was more just like kind of playing devil's advocate because I relate to that too. Because I know like, you know, whatever, like I remember being like in high school, for example, like I remember applying to college and I had people in my life being like I had very good grades, like, etc. And people being like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Like I have no worry in my mind that it's gonna, and I remember just being like, but I might not get into the schools I want to get into. Like I really might not. And then I feel like what's interesting is, and this might be like different people are different with this, but at least for me, when people are trying to like convince me using what I'll call a little toxic positivity, like it's not to mean that people have bad intentions. They have the best of intentions, but they're just trying to be like overly positive with what I view as like no backing. They're like, but you're amazing and whatever, and it's gonna all be good. I'm like, you don't know that. You're not. I find myself like arguing harder for why it's gonna be so bad and why it still might not work out. And I kind of take the opposite stance and like entrench myself in why actually, no, I knew someone who was this great student and then they didn't get into any good school and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, or like
everyone
and everything was horrible. And like, what if what I really could happen? Then you like you almost like you're like arguing the side that you like really don't want to be on. Whereas when you allow someone, again, you don't want to like go the other way and say, yeah, like lots of people don't match, so tough luck. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But just to be like, just in a totally neutral way, Like, okay, like truly what would that be like? Not, oh, that'd be horrible. Like, I want you to get specific. What would you be doing on match day?
Yeah.
What would you, okay, and during that year, let me hear some ideas. What are your ideas about what you would be doing during that year where you're reapplying or whatever? Like what, and like you just said, you often come up with, then you're arguing for kind of the more quote unquote positive side. You put that person in the position of having to argue and entrench themselves in the more quote unquote positive view without going over the top.
Yeah, I definitely think the most supportive things someone could say to me going through this process is like, I know you'll land on your feet. Like, I know that no matter what, like just more being confident that I have the skills and tools to be successful or be okay no matter what, versus saying like, you'll be okay because you're going to match. Like, what if I don't?
Totally.
Like,
totally.
You'll be okay because you are smart and you have a good supportive family. Like, I'm just making, like, whatever, insert whatever reason is what feels more authentic. And it's also what I feel like looking at other people. I just know, like, no matter what adversity they face, like, they're going to make it through it because of, like, their own grit and their perseverance. Yeah. So that's why I'm confident in, like, you, for example.
Right.
Like,
not that someone could magically tell the future and just because they can't. Like, they might be absolutely right that there's a super high likelihood that the match will work out, but it just maybe they are like, yeah, statistically and knowing what your experience is, but like, you know what? They can't tell the future. And
it's interesting. So this person asked us to talk about kind of positive thinking. They didn't ask us to talk about like toxic positivity, but that's kind of where I took it.
Well, okay, interesting.
And they were talking more about the power of positive thinking because they are going to be running the Philly Half Marathon. And they are feeling like they're having a lot of self-doubt and want to know more about like how they can put themselves in like a better place, which I feel like I never like, I just wanted to talk about that kind of aspect more because I think the way that's like a different approach to like a problem than I usually take. So like what I would take again is like, okay, and if I have to go diarrhea real bad in the middle of the race, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But what would you say to like a client?
Yeah, I think there's so many nuances here. There's individual differences and then there's every situation is going to be different. So I don't think there's a one size fits all like approach. Obviously we both love radical acceptance and so obviously we plug that. But I also do think there's something too, if you are focusing on negative things all the time and you're all the time being like, it's probably going to go badly. Like, here's all the reasons why it might go badly. And here's all the reasons why I'm not as capable as other people and blah, 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 blah. Like, you are going to like your negative thoughts will make you feel worse and then probably set you up to do worse. Right. And that kind of can start a cycle. So I do think there is a very real like, and it sounds so simple when you say it, but I just think it's like one of those things we don't stop and think about a lot, that just like taking more, not denying the negative, but taking time to give equal weight or the weight that the positive things are due, I think is so important as well. Because we can talk and think about all the negative things and that might be important to acknowledge. But if you're never then being like, and I'm so grateful that I'm able-bodied and I can run, I don't know, it's just one example. I don't know if this would resonate with this person, but just to throw, I say this to myself sometimes when I'm running. I'm like, you know what, this might suck, but I'm like not injured right now, or I'm able to run. And actually I'm like genuinely very grateful for that in my life right now. I know that might not always be the case and I don't take that for granted. I am so grateful I live somewhere with beautiful scenery and like, or whatever it is. For this person, maybe it's thinking about all the things you've done before where maybe you've had a hard, like something difficult you've had to get through and you've actually done that. Like, it's not a bad thing I think it's helpful to remind yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge when things are hard. Like, if you're really having a tough run, it doesn't mean you have to like pretend it was great. But like just thinking of the positive things, it can set you up for a more positive headspace.
It's interesting, like a couple things. One is that I do feel like I'm like, oh, I don't use that positive thinking, But then when I think about, we've all been around those people that are very negative. Like to the point where they're bringing you down.
Yes.
You can't, you're like going to go get the free lunch and they're like, oh my gosh, I bet it's going to be this again. And I hate that. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that we all don't love this for free,
girl. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, totally.
Everything that they take in their life is like, it's not just like, oh, it is going to be
the glass half empty.
They are looking at everything through this negative lens, and it's like some of them match up, and you're like, I know, girl, same. And some
it's
of them
not like
are
it's 100% bad, or you should never acknowledge where it's like, wow, this cafeteria serves bad food every day. Like that kind of sucks. Like whatever, but like yeah.
I find sometimes I'm around people though constantly predicting the future to be negative.
Yeah,
in like even small ways, which I do think I don't do that as much. But people will, I think I'm like a bigger picture kind of catastrophizer. But there's people that are taking everything like, oh, and I bet the gym's going to be so busy. I'm like, you're not even there.
You know. Yeah.
I know. And I'm like, if it is, like, I don't think about that until I'm at the gym and it's busy. Like, it is hard though. When you're around those people, you can't logic their way out, because then it's like trying to logic me my way out, like, of when I'm stressed about bigger things.
And if you get there and the gym's busy, it's not like we're saying pretend it's empty and don't acknowledge it and don't let yourself think about it. Not at all. It's just to like, also, you might be able to acknowledge that and say like, you know what, I'm actually really glad though that like I have this gym that's like 2 blocks away from me and it's really easy for me to get to, or I have free access as a student, or they like whatever it is, like,
yeah. And I want
those things are real too. Just like you wouldn't want to deny the negative, you don't want to deny the positive.
The antidote to negative thoughts is gratefulness. And I hate to say that because sometimes you're in very bad situations where it feels like, how could you be grateful for anything? And there's situations that I don't know about, and they, like, I'm not even going to talk about the extreme, but just things like, honestly, going to the gym when I first started working out this year, it was like, truly, I had to work to like have a more positive attitude of like, wow, I'm thankful that I am healthy and I could do this. Mm-hmm. Or like, wow, if I remember I had like night shifts in OB-GYN that I didn't want to go to, but I'm like, the power of like positive thinking in that sense is just like, not ignoring the negatives, but trying to focus on like what you are grateful for the situation. Like, I'm grateful that I have a car that can drive me, that is heated while I go. I am grateful that I'm familiar with the electronic medical record system there, so that will be easy. I'm grateful that the nurses there are kind. I'm grateful that this is only 1 week. Truly focusing on that, all of this, it takes very deliberate repetition in your head, but it does, to me, those like, it's not saying, oh, today's gonna go great, I'm not gonna be tired come 3 a.m. It's more just like just taking the power away from those thoughts and focusing more on what you actually are thankful for.
Yes, it's where you shift your focus. I think that's a great way of saying it. Yeah. Oh shoot, I just had a thought and then it jumped out of my head. What I was going to say is, and to your point of where you give focus, I think another thing that can be helpful is when you're making patterns out of your life, try to make patterns out of the positive and not the negative if you do make patterns. So that's I know people, and I'm totally guilty of this. I'm like very guilty of this actually, where like something happens and I'm like quick to be like, oh, this kind of thing always happens. Like the bus is always running late. Why can't it just ever be on time? Or like they're always out of this thing at the store, or they're whatever. Like every time I try to be on time, this thing comes up. And like, I feel like the reality is that's not true. Definitely. It might happen more than once. It might be somewhat of a pattern. So again, it's not to like gaslight yourself out of that, but just to like, when you're in the practice of noticing patterns in your life, try to do this for positive things, to be like, wow, you know, like I was saying, like my husband like meal preps for me, and that's does that happen every week? No, because we have other things going on sometimes, but like to be like, that's generally something that he does, and it's so amazing that that gets to happen, and not being like, again, conversely, like the bus is always late, like even if it's late a lot of the time, just to be like, okay, like that's a part of my life. I'm not going to lie to myself about it, but I'm not going to harp on it as a capstone of my life, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. Honestly, I feel like just not making patterns out of your life is the best.
Yeah.
Because then I think if I make a positive pattern out of something, if I'm like, wow, and I don't think that's necessarily where you were going, but like if I'm like, wow, every time I wear this sweater, I do well on an exam.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to get into
I know
magical
that's not
thinking.
where you're going.
Yeah.
I think as soon as I start to see patterns of like, okay, wow, I guess I don't know. I just try to think of each situation as its own thing. Because I think, for example, the first time I took the MCAT, I didn't do as well. And then the second time I did better. And I remember thinking at the time, oh my gosh, this is just like the ACT. Like, girl, like these are different scenarios. Like, and then I thought to myself, this is going to be my whole life, every exam, blah, 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 blah. But I think that more thinking like, wow, it's just random.
Right. Well,
I can work as hard as I can, and then it just is what it is. Like, I can't control
there's so
the
many
outcome.
factors at play. I think it is. Obviously, there's times where it can be useful to like notice patterns in your life and try to troubleshoot things. But I think that I take your point for sure. And it's so tempting in this time of life. Like, you know, I feel like during college, especially, I started to notice this pop up, and I still definitely see it into like 20s, 30s with people I know, where in high school, you have so many experiences for the first time. You're like, I'm, you know, taking finals for the first time. I'm applying to college for the first time. I'm like, whatever. And so you're not making patterns, I think, as much. But I feel like once people get to college, they're like, oh, this is now the second time. You've now experienced things a few times in your life. You're like, I've had situations where I've had to make friends a few times. I've had situations where I've taken these big tests a few times, whatever it is. And it can be so easy to form a pattern out of just those few instances. Like you've had twice in your life, you've had to make new friends.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm so bad at making friends or something. And it's like, I don't know, you were 15 the first time and 18 the second time, and your whole life is so much longer than that, and you're going to learn a lot and you're going to be with different kinds of people. And I mean, I had this exact like thing when I went to college. I was like, I'm bad at making friends because it took me a long time. And then I remember like studying abroad, and I was like, I just literally had like no expectations. I was like, I probably won't make friends because I'm just bad at making friends. And I made friends like the first day. Like I truly made friends right away.
The first time, I feel like you were just like in your element.
I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not bad at making friends. Like, I don't know. I had kind of like, I'd never experienced a break to this pattern, this quote unquote pattern that happened like once or twice. And so I think in our early adulthood, it can be so easy to be like, I'm the kind of person who X, because you've experienced something like 2 or 3 times.
Yes, that is such a good point. Yes. And that's where I guess I'm also thinking like not even thinking of things in like a positive light, because I think the sample size at this time in our life is still so small that it's just hard to be like, wow, I'm really good. Trying to think like you can notice like things that you're good at or things that like are weaknesses or strengths. Yeah. But when you start being like, I'm trying to think of like a good, more like positive one, but it's like I can't even think of like a bad. Now I'm like, I guess it's not bad to think positively, but
you don't want to put extra pressure on yourself by like,
maybe it's that it's like
being like, oh, I have
every
to be
time I go in for the test I get an A, so I'll get an A this time. Like
I think like it's also the difference between
but
noticing your strength and going is, I think, could be great, but the minute it becomes you've put an identity onto yourself, that can probably be where it goes too far.
100%. And I feel like I see this with also people like putting an identity on something that can change, that is does change. Like even just like, I'm someone that struggles making friends, I'm someone that's really good at making friends. Like instead of just being like, I'm a social person, like, or whatever.
Or like, we'll see. I don't know. I have no expectation.
But I think like I see this also with weight. Like people are like, I'm a skinny person, and then that's not true anymore, and that's like a whole identity change, you know?
Yeah,
like
totally.
When something that's changeable becomes like your identity in a positive or negative way. Like you might think this is a positive thing, but it it can also just be like what it is right now, and in the future you might be different.
Right. Like I get good grades, and then all of a sudden you're in a more difficult academic environment, and you're like, what does it mean now that I'm not this type of person?
Does that mean I'm not smart anymore? Instead of,
right.
Yeah.
If you were now, a maybe more healthy version of that going backward would have been, maybe I'm someone who like I like work really hard, and I like study really diligently. And you can obviously notice like, okay, that generally leads to good grades. But this way, if that does change, if your grades change because maybe it's been more difficult or you're in a new environment, it's not this like identity of like, who am I now? It's more like, okay, like I'm still the type of person who like works hard and like I can focus and all these things. And like right now it's not leading to good grades. And I'm not trying to say that's good or that you should just gaslight yourself into thinking that's not so bad, because it might be tough, but like at least it's not like this undue pressure on your shoulders of like, who am I now that
yeah, no, for sure. I feel like that's honestly something that I went through in college too, but I think I was able, like I didn't get as good grade in college as like I did in high school, like story of a lot of people's life, but like especially when you're like pre-med, but not tying my identity of being smart to grades. Like just being like, okay, are all independent cases. Like that I'm going in for this test. Like there's other things going on in my life. Like
totally.
This is only the second time I am in a school environment. Like this is the first time in a school environment out of high school. Like you're still building who you are and what's going on.
Totally. Not to be that person who just like always talks about study abroad, but I feel like I have another example of this where I actually wrote my personal statement for internship on this idea, and like part of, I don't know, other things I mentioned too, but part of it was that when I went to France, I wanted to just take a semester to improve my French. But most people, and it was like a full-on immersion program. I was studying at like a French university, and most people in my program were American students who were French majors. So this was like a part of their identity. Like I speak French well, I'm good at French. And when we got there, we had to take an initial placement test to determine like what levels you were going to be in. And I was like toward the bottom of the list. I had to be in like a remedial class. And I was kind of like, whatever. I expected that. Whatever. It's not part of my identity. It's just something I enjoy doing, and I'm here to improve. But a lot of people who were in that same bucket who had to take the remedial class with me, I really saw it shake them, that they were like, oh, what does this mean about me? I'm a French major. Like some of them literally were like, I think I might change majors because maybe I'm not cut out for this. Yeah. And I saw a lot of them not really, they were like very tentative about practicing their French. Whereas I was like, whatever, I'm going to make mistakes. I don't care. Like I'm just here to improve. And having that kind of growth mindset allowed me by the end, not to brag, I was like toward the top of the group on our like exit exam. And I really do feel like, who knows what was going on for every individual person, but like from my perception, there was so much of this, like I was just willing to fail and be like, it's okay. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person or I'm not good at school or whatever. Like I'm just doing my best. And other people who were like, I'm a French major, were like, no, like I can't say anything wrong. I have to really rehearse what I'm going to say and everything. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good place to end, but thank you guys for listening, and shout out to this girl who's running the Philly half with me.
I know. Hopefully we got to your point at all.
I think the point is that maybe your identity is that, you know, you're not a fast runner or you're a fast runner, but don't put weight into, I don't know, actually.
I think maybe just don't put an identity on it. Everyone when they start out is not going to be fast, right? Like you're trying this for the first time.
This is your first time. I obviously from the outside know that you're going to do great, but.
No toxic positivity.
Oh, I know.
No, I know. But that is where it's so well
you're a very perseverant person, and I know that even if you have to walk some of it, take more breaks than you need to, like, or than you plan to, it will be okay and you will finish.
Yes.
How about that?
And yeah, like just reflecting.
She's gonna beat me. I know it.
Yeah. I think also just like reflecting on what your goals are and what you actually want to get out of this, and okay, what would it mean if you didn't get this X magical time or whatever your goal, you're really the thing that scares you is. If the thing that scares you is like having to walk during it, or not getting a specific time, or getting a cramp or whatever, like what would actually happen, and like think through, like, I think you might be the kind of person who can handle it, but it's important for you to think about that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much for listening, guys.
Let us know if you have any other recs for what we should talk about. I'm looking at you.